I'm sure that many of us are looking to put 2020 behind us. Now, there are no retrograde planets in the astrological sky right now, but I am going to come on and talk about the astrology of 2020. What a turbulent year that the world has gone through at large, especially with the pandemic. Now, we all know what happened during the pandemic, and that's an experience I certainly don't want to relive. And I'm sure many of us don't want to relive that. But the invitation of COVID is an invitation to know yourself at a deeper level, to go inside and find out what you're really about, what you really mean, and what you really can do with what there is. It's a time of deep reflection and introspection. And we've had a lot of that, where we've been shut out and isolated for so long from so many people. And now the doors are opening up. People are getting back together again. And now we can start a brand new chapter. But how this pandemic got formed is a mystery still to this day in holding. But I will tell you one thing. It did not start out with the Governor Kim Reynolds, who went to China and concocted a poison-type mixture, and then it spread like wildfire and it was diseased. Who knows what could have happened? But an animal, to a farmer, to his wife, to his children, to this family, to that family, from village to community, to city, to state, to nation, to country, to continent, to the world. And what happened during the pandemic astrology is based off of what happened right before then. Because on January 12th, we had the conjunction of Saturn, the heavyweight, and Pluto, the heavy builder. Saturn and Pluto are really powerful together. They really make a dynamic duo that can stand out like the hand dryers in your bathroom that are golden or silver or bronze. Saturn moved into Capricorn on December 20th, 2017. And then it stayed there until December 16th of 2020. But it briefly moved into Aquarius starting on March 22nd, and it was there for a couple of months. Kind of like how Pluto will move into Aquarius starting on March 15th through June 19th for a few months, retrograde back through Aquarius, and move back into Capricorn, only to station direct on October 11th. And then move forward again, and then enter Aquarius in January next year. But we have the conjunction. We had that superpower conjunction of Saturn and Pluto. And you know what it was genuinely about? The problems with our governments, the problems with authority, the institutions, the religious centers, the Zeni-Maxwells, and their top-down structures. Now, just top-down structures in itself deals with that kind of thing. On the individual level, that particular conjunction was a time for us to become more individual and to claim our own power, to trust our own authority, to follow the guiding light, which is our authority. After all, we are the ones we have been waiting for. And every teacher forms its own inner teacher, as we know. And Capricorn is the teacher, it's the builder, it's the plant master. Remember that it takes the start of the foundation and it builds up all of Rome, but it doesn't take all day or all night to build Rome. It takes months and years to build Rome. Potentially decades to build Rome. And so Capricorn's about the builder. It is about manifesting something from the ground up. And what are the manifestation and how can your dreams truly materialize? Well, with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, I'm sure those dreams did materialize. Saturn rules Capricorn, and as such, it moves into a sign for about 2.5 years. Saturn is the planet of structure, but it's also the planet of limitation, where we're so sensitive to our limitations, we can't get an eye past vanity because we have our internal critic, or at least I do, seeing as my progressed Saturn is in Virgo and has been since 2019 and will continue to be until 2026. I can't wait to have challenges in terms of people pleasing in relationships, because that, I'm sure, is going to be an easier challenges to deal with because I am a Sun in Aries and my moon is in Libra and Saturn's exalted in Libra. So I think that those challenges compared to these will possibly be easier. Remember, with Saturn, when it moves into a new sign, you're not completely moving away from all challenges. You're leaving old problems behind, new problems emerge. That's how it works with Saturn. Because Saturn causes problems. Saturn gives us a challenge and something to work for and achieve. Hopefully, by the end of the 3 years or 2.5 years, we have mastered that. And that is the hope. And what Saturn wants to achieve is our mastery. And in Capricorn, it is about moving ourselves through our own life, building ourselves up through childhood, disciplining ourselves, following the rules, obeying authority, doing well in school, building a life for yourself, fulfilling your purpose, and anonsum, anomaly. And Saturn wants to ensure that you are fulfilling the reason why you have been incarnated on this planet. Saturn is karmic, and any action that you commit reaps sanctions, and that's what Saturn's here to remind us of every step of the way. And Pluto, since 2008, has been destroying the financial system, destroying the governments, destroying the banking systems, destroying the plane traffic in Diesel points. I mean, there were planes that crashed down in Greece really soon after Pluto went into Capricorn. There were riots in the streets, people putting up signs and protesting that they want money, that they want free will, they want rights, and a rebellion and an uprising against the government. And it harkens us back to when the counterculture was formed in the 1960s, with the hippie age and the age of Aquarius truly sprang into action. The most dramatic time for Pluto is when it enters and leaves a sign, and the 1960s was a sure reminder of that. With the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, it's heavy, it's intense, it's not easy, it's not light and fluffy. Now we know what doesn't work for us anymore. Now we know it doesn't serve us anymore. Now we know what we must release in order to transform for the better. That is the promise of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. And now, those structures that didn't serve us, the top-down rules and regulations for your safety control, now the political divide and the dictators that rule the world could come crashing down on the fateful day of January 12th, 2020. Moving on right down the line. Starting in March of 2020, we had Saturn, the great malefic, moving into Aquarius on the 22nd. That was when I started doing lunar horoscopes. And I had that awful look and that awful speech impediment that I fixed now. Can't you tell how beautifully I'm speaking? Not to be vain. Sorry. Okay. Well, wait till my progressed moon moves into Leo, and I have full permission. But so anyway, Saturn moved into Aquarius. Now we have Devok 91. When Saturn moves into Aquarius, it brought forth social restriction. If we could fill in a sentence of Saturn, guess what it would be? Saturn is blank. Aquarius is blank. Blank, blank. Saturn is restriction, while Aquarius is social. Social restriction. And that's essentially what occurred from the moment that Saturn entered Aquarius. We had social restriction. People could not see eye to eye with each other, face each other. They had to put a thing on their face. Well, at least my mention didn't. At least we had germ killers. But anyway, Aquarius rules how we socially construct our world. Aquarius rules sociology, basically. And Saturn brought challenges to us in the social world, into us physically interacting with one another. And we found that the only way we could do it, the only way we could muster a little bit of communication, is to turn to other people online and through the telephone. Remember that Aquarius rules technology. It is about the invention of man and the discovery of man and what will propel us into the new earth. That's Aquarius energy. And so Aquarius rules over phones and computers. More people went on Zoom. More people went on Skype. More people went on the phone calls. And those Midwestern women with that bird who apparently, I hate to say the word, but they should have seen the progress that has been done when Saturn was in Aquarius. Now we could get real about building new social constructs. Now we have been initiated into the Aki Temple, whether or not we like it. We have been brought into this realm where we have looked at what is going on in the world that does not serve humanity as a whole. And now we fixed it. Well, at least we're almost done because Saturn's still in Aquarius. Aquarius also deals with the concept of being above and on the eagle's perch. It deals with emotional detachment. More people have become more emotionally detached, and we've seen the benefits of that and the repercussions of that during Saturn and Aquarius. Because Saturn brought forth and illuminated the light to see what the issues are that need fixing in Saturn's in Aquarius. And so we've seen how we can cut off, we can choose the cold, rational mind, or we can choose the warm, tender heart, which is Leo energy. And speaking of which, I'm filming this video on the almost full moon in Leo. It'll be exact tomorrow. And Saturn in Aquarius on the individual level represents restrictions in being an individual, restrictions in standing out, restrictions in being quirky, restrictions in putting the multicolored shirt on, basically, with Saturn in Aquarius. And now, over these next 2.5 years, we have gone from way more restricted than we were to now we're way freer than we were as individuals, collectively, and by general analysis. With Saturn It's not about what you know, but what you have yet to learn and overcome. It's about humility. Saturn teaches us a great lesson in humility. And with the Saturn in Aquarius, we have officially moved into totally being the free, quirky individual selves. We have redefined and we have reevaluated what our ideals are: peace, joy, happiness, rights of freedom, pursuits of liberty. All these things have been redefined. Now let's switch it up a little bit. Let's talk about the whole conversation of climate change and politics. Recall that on January 20th of 2021, President Biden became President of the United States. And when this happened on the inauguration day, Saturn was in Aquarius. Now, very soon after, one of these aspects going on is Mars conjunct Saturn. And Mars conjunct Saturn is malefic. It is about our impulsivity and reacting in male energy. And we really can get serious about what moves us into action, what moves us into initiation. And we can see the destruction of war and fire that has been terminating the whole entire realm of the world that we live in. So that was Mars conjunct Saturn. And I remember that there were a lot of people who were really frustrated and angry and willing to fight. And stress was among many people during that particular end of March day. And that's when the COVID issue really became super serious. And when it comes to communities, more people localizing, more people not localizing, but separating themselves from the group, more subcultures getting formed. Well, that's Saturn in Aquarius. Because it deals with small communities. And Aquarius deals with we the people. We the people. And not just of the United States, but we the people. The power of the people. Helping out many people. Saturn in Aquarius is about legitimizing those lofty ideas you have in your mind, which could be revolutionary and leading to revelations, but now coming out into the forefront of life. Not only that, but we also had the nodes changing signs in 2020. So the North Node, up until May 7th, was in Cancer, and the South Node in Capricorn. This adds to the whole conversation of those top-down structures. South Node in Capricorn, North Node in Cancer. Ebenezer Scrooge experienced his nodal return, and coincidentally, on December 19th, 2019, I saw FX's Christmas Carol for the first time. When was Scrooge born? What is his notes? If he had North Node in Cancer, wouldn't surprise me at all. It's also the nodes of a history teacher I had. And this is where you have a lot of planets in their South Node sign, or K2 sign, or K2 territory. It's going to be more challenging to move into the North Node. And you were meant to stay in your South Node for longer and bring the lighter qualities to that South Node. We are moving away from being the workaholics. We were moving away from always climbing up the social ladder It's always about the masculine, going out, working, achieving, making money, doing your due diligence, and submitting the work to get your meal on time. It was all about uniformity, and it was all about growing yourself, growing the mansion, which is yourself, growing your money, growing your finances, expanding your business, becoming a CEO of a law firm. You name it. That's what it was all about. A man working could carry up a suitcase into that town with the temples and the columns. In that city of steel where the people do go back to work, when inside their soul is a deep calling to go home. South Node Capricorn can be really emotionally detached and unavailable. It sees emotions as weakness, and there's a familiarity without wasting your time on what is truly reactive, but spending your time on what can be manifested. It is important to feel the feelings, but how we express them are two different things, and that's Capricorn Cancer. Capricorn Cancer, this axis is all about balancing out the male and the female, in short. Let's take a typical family and in a patriarchal society. Let's talk about a patriarchal society. We're turning towards maternity and not paternity. In a patriarchal society, the husbands go out and make the money. They're the breadwinners. They come home and demand food on that table. The wives stay home, take care of the children, cook, clean, sweep, do all those things. That's the formatting. In a patriarchal society, women are inferior to men, and they get paid less, get respected less, get seen as not stronger, unfortunately. However, National Women's Day is a thing for a reason, and we move into the Aquarius territory, and we really get more female power in that territory. But just think about Michelle Obama. Think about planting a garden in the White House. That is really Capricorn. It's about preserving the beauty and the treasures and jewels of Mother Nature. Not cutting it off with all these industrial buildings and stuff, but understanding that nature has a place. Understanding where we came from, our generations, our ancestors. And now we're moving towards emotional nest, emotional ancestry, and healthy emotional attachment. Another downside of the South Node in Capricorn is being really mean and bossy, and not knowing people on a deep level. Being so self-sufficient that you expected everything to be done by you. You were the leader. And a lot of leaders struggled and crumbled at the time, and we were drawn away from the high-powered downside of Capricorn traits during that South Node and North Node transit. Because the South Node in Capricorn is so restrictive. It's all about a goal. It's always about the next thing. When sometimes the feminine, sometimes the going back home, replenishing, and self-care arenas of life are worth spending time in those arenas of life. And that's the North Node in Cancer, where sometimes taking a break, going home, not only inside yourself, but inside your physical home as well, super important to balance out. The North Node in Cancer is clearly about nurturing yourself. It's clearly about taking care of others and being receptive to others and when they take care of you, when they nourish you. It's about not forgetting that you might have a wife, your mother, your father, your children, and those emotional fourth house roots, which need balancing and need attending to and need your love. And that's where the North Node was. The North Node is what we need to go toward in order to achieve greater happiness and greater fulfillment in this lifetime. The North Node in Cancer is clearly about the father who came home, hello, wife, and then went upstairs, unpacked his case, started working, and his kids needed his emotional attention. Super Nanny was there to remind him that you have a family and, you know, like, yeah. So, it's taking time out from the work. It's not being so cold, but choosing warmer temperature foods, warmer temperature weather, as opposed to the cold, 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 cold. As opposed to being in an air-conditioned room with not a lot of love and light to it, try being in a light room with no air conditioning and love and light and peace. The North Node in Cancer is the node that I remember watching Frozen 2 in. And interestingly, it pointed towards home. And it pointed towards the dance that we do, the classic giving and receiving dance, which is South Node in Capricorn, North Node in Cancer. South Node in Capricorn is the giving. North Node in Cancer is the receptive principle. So we've had that going on. Then we've had the nodes switching signs into Gemini and Sagittarius. And now we are dealing with the destruction of travel, higher education, the destruction of religious institutions, the destruction of people being dogmatic, the destruction of foreign expansion, travel, and any joy, because Sagittarius also deals with joy. That destruction of seeing the big picture for the world was destroyed and looked down upon. The healthy balance of this node is about moving towards small talk, moving towards importance in sometimes not so deep, meaningful, profound, and philosophical. But what is the books on your shelf? What is the information, the data? What is your neighbors? What is your community? Those what is questions or what are? What's this? Gemini North Node is about asking questions, asking really good, informative questions, getting into the details. That's what I'm trying to move away from here. And so, the North Node in Gemini, there's so much happiness when you're willing to sit down and read something. When you face circumstances as they are, and when you stay in your immediate environment and be present and take advantage of all there is, and just find something to occupy yourself during a really hot and boring summer of a 5-year. If you're tired of watching videos, read something. Listen to it on audiobook. Being inventive and creative and resourceful using what's already available is so important for the Gemini North Node soul to achieve in this lifetime. And so the Sagittarius North Node travel was closing down. People found it really difficult to travel. This deals with being so opinionated and having so much wisdom, but where's the knowledge? Where's the nuance? You could be so wise in one area, but what about lacking in the others? Now, what this means is we had eclipses occurring in Gemini and Sagittarius. One in June, but also a straggler in July on the 4th, America's birthday, because remember that America was born on July 4th, 1776. And so it was the birthday of the woman who is America. And we know this year is going through its Pluto return. But this eclipse was about the lunar eclipse, about balancing the male energy with the female energy in Emanita. And then the eclipse has changed. December 14th, an eclipse. December 1st, I believe that was an eclipse, where the sun and moon were conjunct in Sagittarius. So these full moon and new moons are important, and it's sort of the smaller astrology. But when you're looking at a year's worth of astrology, you're really looking at the big stuff. Now, we had that happening on May 7th. Then we had a Venus retrograde. We had a Venus retrograde in Gemini, the sign that Venus is in my natal chart. Wouldn't it be something amazing if in 2020 we had a Venus retrograde in Gemini and a Mars retrograde in Gemini? Because only 2 years later, Mars retrograded in Gemini, and I was aware and awake of the astrology of what was going on at that time. So Venus retrograde in Gemini. Venus retrogrades are notorious times where astrologers say not to get your nails polished, not to get a tattoo, not to put on a rock style haircut when, wow, I want to change up my looks. Don't do that. It's also a time where you don't want to buy yellow chicken colored clothes when really black is your color. Keep to black. Reevaluate, marinate on what you want to do, and then when Venus turns direct, go out, buy some new clothes. When Venus goes retrograde, exes come back into our lives. People come back. We encounter past issues and relationships. And we also reevaluate what joy and pleasure truly means for us. What makes us happy? Now we could certainly go walk down the tracks and chase down exes, but let's not do that. Let's just allow them to come back, shall we? Venus retrograde is a time where astrologers say don't get married or don't agree upon marriage. Mercury retrograde, well, that's fine. Venus rules relationships. It rules marriage, those contracts, that seventh house arenas of life. And so when Venus goes retrograde, any financial dealings, buying a house, money, food, your relationships, love, how you are in terms of love, how you show up in terms of love, whom you love, what you love, is under a little bit of an introspection and a reevaluation. Venus in Gemini rules reevaluation in relationships in regards to how is it going on an intellectual plane. How is it really going? Is that person truly communicating what they need to? Are you feeling really genuinely pulled to them through the means of communication? Are they stimulating enough? Are they interesting enough? Do they fulfill your needs on an intellectual level? Is the communication in your relationship solid? Is there a solid step up, step back technique for that family with their kids? That's what it's all about. Gemini is about communication. Gemini is about information. You don't know what information you truly love and are interested in. You don't know what books are right for you, what stimulus or documentaries or people or social sectors or conversations that are enjoyable to you. You're going through a new, phase. And so going into new social circles, starting a new job, going into a new club even, and starting a new writing book, initiating that, um, giving a speech. Are they difficult things to do during a Venus retrograde in Gemini? But do you feel light as a feather in relationships? Do you feel like that person is there that makes you learn, that's stimulating, and that opens you up to new ideas or closes it down? Those are all the conversations we had to deal with up until from around May through June 25th. Now, what also happens this year is we have Mercury retrograde in Cancer over the summer. And this is about going back over, reevaluating what actions, what situations propel us, and how we emotionally think. Mercury retrograde is about emotions, and emotions can come up where we feel, but we think. And so certainly feelings of sorrow and nostalgia come up during Mercury retrograde in Cancer. And it is a supremely harmonious time to go back through the old photo albums and recount the past, spending time with family, both Mercury retrograde in Cancer and Capricorn both. However, it does not get significant enough as on July 25th, 26th, Mars entered shadow for the retrograde season of 2022, or 2020, I should say. Mars entered shadow on July 26th, only to station retrograde in Aries on September 9th, station direct on November 13th, and leave shadow on January 3rd. Mars retrograde. Mars moves through the whole entire zodiac for about 2 years. It takes 2 years for Mars to travel all through those signs. But when Mars circles back around, it is amazing what happens. Mars spends about 40 to 50 days in a sign, but when it retrogrades, it can spend up to 7 months. 7 months, some of which are when it's direct, and for about, I would say, 3 months, 2.5 months, I would say, Mars is retrograde. It was a little bit of a shorter retrograde. Sometimes Mars retrogrades in one sign or another sign. This retrograde was, I'm sure, a doozy for many people. And you know why it was a doozy? Mars rules Aries, and when it retrogrades in Aries, its effects can be really strong. But I was not consciously aware because I barely even thought, I didn't really think of Mars retrograde. I didn't even know Mars retrograde Aries. I didn't, those pieces of the puzzle, I didn't piece together, so I didn't know about it till afterwards. But Mars retrograde in Aries, I'm sure, was a doozy, and many people were feeling really tired and worn out. Mars can do that, where it makes people more tired, more worn out, less motivated. Makes it hard to fight and win battles. It makes it hard to stand up for yourself, assert yourself, and it makes it hard to push for what you want. It's so often that we allow a higher power to take over. We allow ourselves to receive. We take things slow and steady, and we finish things up during any retrograde. But Mars is action. And so we need to take action with Mars. There's no joke. And Mars is not lukewarm. It's not cold. It's always hot, especially in Aries. So Mars retrograde in Aries. Well, I'm sure that arguments have been really dicey. I am sure that gyms have closed down all over the world. I am sure that pushing forward has been really difficult. I am sure that initiating something and being a pioneer and moving on independently has been really difficult. And so it was over a long period of time. And I think a powerful image that comes to mind is really early on in the retrograde, September 15th. The sky as I was walking was, well, there were brush fires going on in the west. Mars retrograde, fire. Aries, fire. Brush fires. Mars shutting down, Mars not working properly. Now Mars weakened, Mars malfunctioning. Fires in the west. You see where I'm going with this. Such a profound symbol. And believe it or not, as early as September the 15th, Mars went retrograde, which I found really interesting that it retrograde that early, starting September 9th. Wow. So Mars went retrograde in Aries, which really heated things up. Retrogrades are closer to the Earth and seen as times of gaining wisdom. Retrogrades are times of reevaluating and redefining yourself for the better. Lessons when it comes to your male energy, your power, what arouses you, and motivation come to play with Mars retrograde, especially in Aries. Now, on September 29th, it actually made a really interesting aspect to Saturn. It squared Saturn at the time since it retrograded back into Capricorn. Now, combine this with the South Node in Sagittarius, fighting for our principles and our rights. North Node in Gemini, listening, humility, learning. Mars retrograde in Aries, squaring Saturn, is about humility, is about surrender, is about acceptance. It illuminates that serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, wisdom to know the difference. Profound on September the 29th. What was going on in my life on September the 29th? I was in a relationship with a student teacher that I thought did not deserve to teach a certain class that I wanted to take. I thought that this person was overpowering. I thought that he didn't know his place. I thought that this was not his role, and it really was not what I signed up for. Yet, there would be times when I would feel good and it would feel right, and other times when I felt like I would regret it and I needed to take this person in really small doses for some rhyme or reason. Some reason. But the deal is that when it comes to Saturn, it deals with restriction, it deals with authority. Saturn also deals with the hard lessons of life. And Mars squares Saturn, Saturn's further out, Saturn wins when Mars is retrograde. Saturn also points toward maturity. It points toward not fighting or not showing any arrogance toward certain people, but choosing the Capricorn way of following the rules, doing what you need to do, being professional, and doing the work, and not shutting down and not resisting because of that. Forces out of our control, greater forces, school, education, those top-down structures, could there be more of an understanding and humility towards those top-down structures? Well, there could have been at that time really strongly. So that was the flavor of that particular day. Anyone who would fight, fight, it was not worth fighting. Choose peace and harmony and collaboration. There's something about fighting and not winning if you initiate a battle. Is that true? Maybe, maybe not. But so, what we also had going on in 2020 that marks the very end of the year is on December 17th, Saturn entered Aquarius, officially not to leave until March 7th of this year. On December 20th, Jupiter entered Aquarius. Both of these conjuncted in Aquarius on December 21st. This initiated a brand new 200-year cycle of Jupiter and Saturn conjuncting in the air signs Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. With this placement, we're moving from materialism, earthy, practicality, constriction, top down, the way that things always been done, do your job, do this and that, to freedom, to ideals, to the intellectual realms, to the law of attraction, that your thoughts create your reality, to a higher realm, into how you can become more conscious of your thoughts and choose your thoughts. Have the power to choose your thoughts and have them manifest for you. Time of relationships and a time of ideas and technology, and it's now a time to be flighty, to be communicative, and again, to be free. Jupiter is about joy, Saturn is about getting serious and getting it done. And we can get a lot done with Saturn in Aquarius. Jupiter in Aquarius conjuncting at 0 degree is a really powerful degree on the winter solstice, which heralds us into a brand new season, a brand new paradigm, a brand new era, a brand new world. I'm Everett Carty, 2020 Astrology. Hope you enjoyed. Bye.